Hvala lijepo. Srdačno pozdravljam sve i organizatore i kolege pa i cijelu publiku, ali držat ću moje izlaganje na engleskom jeziku jer naš organizator Arpad Hornjak je rekao da treba držati na engleskom. Nisam znao da je jezik konferencije srpski, ali eto, pa držat ću na engleskom. Ali ako budemo imali diskusiju, onda bi radije na srpskom. During the 19th century, but also in the 20th century, Hungarian historiography dealt with the matter of Hungarian-Serbian relations on a relatively large scale. Hence, it could not ignore the issue of Serbian migrations to Hungary from the 14th to the 18th century. In this presentation, I will deal only with Hungarian works published from 1990 to the present, more precisely from 1991 to 2020. Primarily focused on works dealing with the matters of migrations and the privileges granted by rulers closely related to Serbian immigration. By doing so, I would like to separate the matter of early migrations from the end of the 14th century to the Battle of Mohács and the period of the Ottoman occupation of Hungary and the age of migrations in the late 17th and the early 18th century. Because it's two different periods, three. But in the first period, we listened today already, the Serbian migrants, especially the despots and the noblemen, could integrate to the Hungarian society. But in the era of Ottoman rule, Hungarian society on this territory was destroyed. And after the liberation of Hungary from Ottoman rule at the end of 17th and at the beginning of the 18th century, the society, Hungarian society in these areas was restored, but not in the beginning. It needs very, very long time. I don't want to speak about the story of the migrations because everybody in this room knows it. I will mention only some important works about the Serbian migrations, about the Serbian Orthodox Church, the role of the Serbian Orthodox Church, and about the privileges. One of the first important works published in Hungary after 1990 should be mentioned precisely in connection with the position and the significance of the Patriarchate of Pécs and the new role of the Pécs Patriarchs. It is the Hungarian edition of László Hadarich's book, published in French in 1947, only in French at that time, Le Peuple Serbe and son Église sous la domination turque. In 1991, academician István Nyomárkai, head of the Department of the Slavic Philology of Budapest University, considered it important to republish this small but significant booklet in the Hungarian language under the title Vallás, Egyház, Nemzettudat, a szerb egyház nemzeti szerepe a török uralom alatt, Religion, Church and the National Consciousness, the national role of the Serbian Church in the time of Turkish rule. The book was also published in Croatian language in Zagreb. László Hadarić, Srpski narod i njegova crkva pod turskom vlašću. Globus, published in Hadarić's book deals primarily with the matter of the revival of the Serbian Orthodox Church, the Patriarchate of Pécs and its role in the millet system, and the question of the Patriarch's religious and secular authority. Naturally, he also writes about Serbian migrations and settlement in Hungarian territories from the 14th century and central parts of Hungary during the Ottoman occupation. The Serbian Church, which preserved the tradition of the Serbian medieval state, started spreading the Serbian name in the 16th and 17th centuries, as Hadarić says. Serbian sources soon began to refer the area of the Patriarchate from Buda to Adriatic Sea, regardless of whether it belonged to Croatia, Slavonia, or Hungary, as the Serbian land, Srpska zemlja. Hadrović dedicates a separate subchapter to the question of spreading the Serbian name, Szerb névfordítása, Serbian name conquest space. It should be remembered, however, that in the case of the Serbian Church, this did not signify the modern idea of Greater Serbia. Regardless of how it would be used later by Serbian national ideologies and in contrary the enemies of this Serbian ideology in 19th and 20th century. But this is a kind of archaic medieval image of the world, a continuance of Serbian statehood in an idea providing legitimacy in which the patriarch saw himself in the position of the Serbian ruler, albeit in the world with the Sultan as in the role of the Byzantine emperor. The period of the first Serbian migrations, even including those between 1790 and 1739, is covered in a valuable publication issued in the same year as Hadrović's booklet in Szeged. Under the title Szerbek Magyarország on the Serbs in Hungary. It contains papers by 9 excellent historians from Hungary and Serbia, more precisely 8 historians, since the ninth author is Igor Green, an ethnologist and a member of the Serbian minority community in Hungary. The leading article was written by Dénes Sokcsevits, a prominent expert on the history of the Ottoman period in Hungary. The title is The Serbs in Hungary, the Serbs in Hungarian History, draft. Sokcsevits' introductory essay provides an overview of Hungarian-Serbian relations from the settlement of Hungarians, that is the reign of the Árpáds and the Nemanyas, until the end of the World War II. Sokcsevits does not ignore mutual conflicts, but attempts to objectively present the coexistence of Hungarians and Serbs, their cooperation and the common fight against the Ottomans in the 15th century, as well as their bloody mutual clashes, first after the Battle of Mohács, during the Rákóczi uprising in 1948, and of course in the Second World War. As for Serbian migrations in the 15th and the late 17th century, Sokcsevits tries to present demographic data realistically and tackle statistics with caution. I can mention Péter Rókai, also he has a paper in this book. He was mentioned already many times today. He wrote about the Serbian migrations to South Hungary from the end of the 14th century and until the Battle of Mohács. He used this own research as well as Simo Čerković's monograph published at that time. Rókai pointed out the fact that immigrant Serbian nobles integrated into the Hungarian system in the 15th century, as did soldiers, frontier guards, Sajkási and Huszárs, also not only noblemen. As to the Hungarian authors, I would like to mention Antal Hegedűs, who also in this collection of papers, who summed up the balance of Serbian migrations as follows. I quote, "The migration of Serbs 1300 years ago is both a tragedy and a blessing for the Serbian people. It is tragic because they had to leave their old homeland of South Serbia, present-day Kosovo, to the masses of Albanians. However, the great migrations is also a blessing because they found their home in South Hungary, where their material and spiritual culture flourished on a European scale." From Serbian papers and authors, I will mention Slavko Gavrilović. This is a very, very little book, but I think that it is very important. Slavko Gavrilović's paper from the publication also deserves to be mentioned. It provides an overview and the issues of migration and Serb privileges. It is important to note that, in contrast to older Serbian historiography, Gavrilović emphasized that in this document, dated 6th of April 1690, which was erroneously referred to as an invitation, invitatoria, the Austrian ruler Leopold I calls on the Serbs as the Hungarian king to revolt against the Turks and remain in their homeland. I will further discuss this paper below. In this, in a book published in 1987, the title is "The Last Days of the Turkish Rule in Hungary," a török világ végnapai Magyarországon, the Hungarian historian László Nagy, author of popular books on the Ottoman period, emphasized that old Serbian historiography misrepresented the invitatoria by omitting the verb non from the sentence non deserite. This issue has long been known in Hungarian historiography. However, Nagy was not aware that Ilarion Rovaras had pointed out it in his great work, Opechkin Patriarchima, on the Patriarch of Page, the inadmissibility of such treatment of sources, and thus Slavko Gavrilović in 1991 paper clearly refers to the document as so-called invitatoria. And the rest that Leopold had called on the Serbs to fight in their old homeland and had promised them privileges in their native land. After I will quote about other sentence from Dénes Sokcsevits. Many historians in older Hungarian historiography called the Habsburgs referred to as the standard bearers of the Catholic counter-revolution, firmly defended the Serbian Orthodox Church from Catholic uniate aspirations. Leopold I, Joseph I, Charles III, except Maria Theresa. She supported the idea of the church union to some extent. But in the old Hungarian historiography, many of Hungarian historiographers mentioned that the Habsburgs wanted to use the Serbian forces as a useful investment already during Rákóczi struggle for freedom with regard to the Hungarian insurgents. I would like to mention here that Ferenc Sokay claims in his already mentioned article that the Habsburg had no foresight enough and did not allow the immigration of Serbs to use them against Hungarians, but rather wanted to use them as a military force against the Ottomans. Now, in new Hungarian literature, I have to mention Antal Molnár. He wrote 3 studies about the Serbian Orthodox Church in Hungary in the 17th century. He started with Catholic Jesuit Franciscan Dominican missions in Hungary, areas under Ottoman rule, but now he is researching in Vatican archives the connections between Catholics and Catholic missionaries and the Serbian Orthodox Church on this territory. And I see in his article that the Catholic missionaries didn't understand the Serbian Orthodox Church. It was a great, they misunderstood. Even the missionaries from Croatia who speaks the language, they didn't understand the structure, and of course not only structure, the same Orthodox Church. They this and I think that is the main result of this research. While perusing works on Serbian migrations and the position of the Serbian minority in the first centuries of their living in Hungary, I came across some unusual claims and indications. Historian Attila Delvidéki began publishing a series of books on the most negative aspects of Hungarian-Serbian coexistence, various bloody conflicts and bloodshed from the period of Rákóczi Uprising to the World War II. But in the first volume, he wrote about the migrations. It is this book is I could say it's not so objective. It is the title of the book, the first one in the series, is A ráciárások története lángoló temetők. The ráciárások is a word. It's very similar to the invasion of Tatars and Mongolians. It is in Hungarian the Tatárjárás. And cemeteries inflames the undertitle. He addresses according to Delvidéki's theory, the Great Migration under Čarnojević was not a spontaneous flight, but deliberate and systematic colonization against the will of the Habsburgs, and even more so of the Hungarian classes and ethnic Hungarians. Arsenia Čarnojević, as Delvidéki says, in 1690, as well as Arsenia Šakabenta in 1739, were systematically and deliberately transforming the Hungarian land on which they settled into Serbian lands. And they obtained privileges from Habsburg rulers only to establish their own state in Hungarian soil. Incidentally, Delvidéki quotes those Serbian authors who criticized the two patriarchs for resettlement of Serbs from South Serbia and the loss of Kosovo, but only to prove that they deliberately brought them along to colonize fertile Hungarian lands in order to seize territory in the future. Notwithstanding, I would like to return to Slavko Gabrilevich's paper from 1991, which provides evidence that all of the Serbs dreamed of returning to their homeland, like all refugees in history. In the beginning, their first years spent in exile. Only the failures of the military forces of the Habsburg Empire in pushing the Ottomans out of the Balkans in the late 1690s and 1739 compelled the immigrant Serbs to reconcile the loss of their old homeland and to try to make do in Hungary, to try to create the structures of life in Hungary. Recently, Serbian migrations to Hungary have been reviewed by Mária Getvai in the journal Kisebbségkutatás in 2015 under the title A menekült kérdés színe és vonákja, a szerbek betelepülése Magyarországra kezdetektől 1849-ig. The color and background of the refugee issue, the settlement of the Serbs in Hungary from the beginnings to the uprising of 1848-49. This paper is actually a short synthesis of the previous research with no new discoveries. The latest articles depicting the migrations and coexistence of Serbs and Hungarians in Hungary in the 15th century have been published in the publication titled Na granici Hrišćanske Europe, on the frontier of Christian Europe, edited by Arpad Hornyak. 3 papers in this publication are dedicated to the Serbia-Hungarian relations in the 15th century, and already I think that colleague Krestic mentioned it, that Tamás Pálossal presents the interesting story about the Brankovics. The Hungarian author points to the fact that George Branković precisely one of his sons became a serious candidate for the Hungarian throne in 1440. The publication also contains articles by Serbian historians Alexander Krstic and Dénes Sokcsevits, dealing with Serbian-Hungarian relations in that period. Presley describes the inclusion of despots of Serbia in the political life of Hungary, while Sokcsevits writes about the positional and events in the region between the Drina and Sava under the influence of the policy of Hungary and Serbia at that time. Naturally, in the last 30 years of Hungarian historiography, many authors have written about Serbian-Hungarian relations, while in this paper I wanted to focus solely on works dealing with the topic of migrations and problems of the settlement, or at least mentioning this important matter. Even this brief overview shows that Hungarian and Serbian historiographies have had a lively dialogue and a constructive discussion on this interesting topic of common history. Thank you very much.